Welcome back everyone to more NASCAR Heat 4 at Knee Pit Gaming. In today's video, we're going to take a look at one of the most popular features in the NASCAR Heat series, and that is the career mode. We're going to go ahead and get started with a brand new career and go through all the steps required to create our own race team. Now, the career mode has had one big change from NASCAR Heat 3 to NASCAR Heat 4, and we're going to see that right away as we get started. Immediately, you'll notice a change from NASCAR Heat 3, and that is that now we can do a custom start and start in any of the 4 series within the game, as opposed to having to do a required start in dirt, moving up through trucks, Xfinity, and then finally into Cup. So for our purposes, we're actually going to use that very custom start rather than doing the traditional start in dirt. But first, let's take a look at, very briefly, the career mode options. Now, if you've taken a look at my gameplay options video, then these will look very familiar to you. So we're not going to spend a lot of time going over those, but I will just point out that you do have the similar options for setting up your own personal player difficulty, as well as the various AI settings. And of course, once you get into the career mode, you can always change these on a race by race or series by series basis, depending on how you want to play the game. So for our purposes today, just to show the custom start, we're going to choose that option. And we're going to come over and actually start a Monster Energy Cup team, just so that I can show you some of the costs that are involved, as they can be quite high in the Cup series, and definitely the highest of any of the series in the game. All right, we've got that set. Now we'll come back to the top, start my career, custom start. That is exactly what we want. So we'll go ahead and click the button now. That will bring us to the player creation screen. And we've got several options here. Now we're not going to go through and actually create a player here. We'll save that to when we do our career mode here on the channel. But here are several of the options that I did want to show you guys in today's video. So you've got the default. This is what I'm using currently in the game. See, would you like to change your current settings? Yes, I would. So we've got several presets that are available, both male and female. And then, of course, once you decide on a preset, let's just go back to the very first one. You can change pretty much everything about the face and the head, and you can see there's options for eyes that we'll see here in just a moment. You can change the complexion and so on. So let's move over to the next tab where we can change the hair. Now, I have not seen an option to remove the cap, so the haircut is limited as far as what you're going to be able to see of it. So if you prefer to do a mohawk, you're not going to really get to see that from what I've seen so far. We've got facial hair, we've got eyebrows, all sorts of options here. The eye options to change the different shape and color there, nose options, mouth options, head accessories. This is where we get into the type of hat that you have, the shape of the hat. Here you see with the standard hat, we can go flat bill or relaxed. All right, then we've got color schemes. You can invert the colors. You can do a 3-color, a front pattern, camouflage, and so on. So you've got lots of different options for both colors and styles. Also, one thing I really like about this is you can change the actual decal that's on the hat. The Durham Racing Engines is a logo that I really like, so I tend to use it as much as I can. Okay, and then finally the outfit options. We can change the body type for our driver and make him whatever body type we would prefer. Same thing with volume. In this case, the muscle tone. Different outfits that you've got, different color schemes, just like with the cars. And then once again, you can see we've got the ability to put sponsors all over our outfit. So not bad. Not bad for options to configure your racing suit. Now let's go ahead and continue on to create our team. Now we're met with the press clipping that announces our arrival into the Monster Energy Cup Series. So we're going to go ahead and press continue here. And now it's time to go ahead and set up our team. So now we're met by Warren, who is our agent, and I believe the real-life agent of Joey Logano, if memory serves me correctly. So he says, "Hi there. I heard you want a shot in the Monster Energy Series. My name is Warren, and I represent great racers like yourself." All right, thank you very much. Let's continue. Before we get started, I need to ask you a few questions to make sure we get everything just right. Now, this sounds similar to what we had in the dialogue option in NASCAR Heat 3 when we got to the end of a season and it was time to choose our options for the next season. That's what he's going to go through now. Here's our option to decide, okay, what series do we want to participate? Now, from the very beginning, we chose Monster Energy Cup Series where we want to get started, but that does not keep us from choosing these others as well. So we can choose to participate in all of these right from the very beginning. Now, for our purposes today, we're going to go ahead and skip all of them but the Monster Energy Cup Series, but that is an important step in this process, is choosing whether you want to just participate in one series or all of them. We're going to go ahead and select continue, and now we have to select, do we want to join a team, an existing team, or do we want to start our own team? Now, the fun for me in the career mode is starting my own team, so we're going to go ahead and select that. Now we need to select the name and the logo for our team, and these are very much the same or very similar to what we saw in Heat 3. So for our purposes today, we're going to go ahead and choose Black Storm Motorsports and continue on. Now we have a choice of two sponsors. You notice there is no sponsor available for Toyota, and that's because we don't have either any results as a team or a reputation as a driver. So because of that, we have two basic starting points, either for Ford or for Chevrolet. And here, you can do the math here and decide which one you want. I'm just going to simply choose Procore, and because I want to go with the Chevy route. All right, next we're met with a few tutorials here. It's going to let us know exactly how career mode works, just in case you are not familiar with NASCAR Heat 3 and the way the different chassis worked in the game as they were based around the tracks that you're going to be running. So we're going to continue through that. And which type of car would we like to buy first? And as we scroll through these, you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says performs best at, and then you have a selection of cars. Now we're going to select Speedway here because it's the most often used by a large margin. So we're going to select Speedway, and you can see the cost associated with there, over $1 million, which is quite a bit cheaper than it was in NASCAR Heat 3. Now we need to hire our first employee or two. This year we have specialists. So in years past, you would be able to go 0 to 15 on any employee in any of the three areas. Now you can see that that changes. We have specialists now. So in this case, Dylan is an engine specialist, and we can go 1 to 12 there. Not 1 to 15, but 1 to 12. And if we, for whatever reason, wanted to use him on aero or suspension, then the numbers are quite a bit less. All right, let's go ahead and we'll hire Dylan as our engine specialist. Okay, do we want to start the team? Absolutely we do. Okay, now we're met with a screen about upgrading or training our employee so that he becomes better at his job. In this case, a better engine specialist. So we have the ability to train, just like we did in NASCAR Heat 3. So the look is a little bit different and some of the functionality is a little different, but overall, it's the same basic system in place. You hire employees, assign them to cars on certain tasks, and they improve the performance of the car. All right, so now it's asking us to go ahead and prepare. Now, normally I would want to go ahead and do some training depending on how much money I had available, but for the purposes here, we're going to go ahead and simply assign and get started with the work. Next, we come up to the department maximums. Now, again, this is the same as what we saw in NASCAR Heat 3. We start out with a maximum of 75 on each of the 3 categories, engine, aero, and suspension. And then we have to spend money to upgrade these over time in the areas that we are interested in until ultimately you have all of them fully upgraded. All right, at the bottom you notice that we have an option for auto assign employees in case we have later in the game when we have several employees and you don't necessarily want to go through and manage them all one by one. But for right now, I'm simply going to press the A button since we're in Xbox and assign our one and only employee. Next, we need to get the work started. So we're going to go ahead and press the X key and do that. And there you can see we didn't improve by much since Dylan is brand new and has not received any additional training. We only got a +1 to our engine performance. So not a whole lot to work with there. That's why I like to do the training first before going through that step. All right, so now we need to edit the look of our car. Now in this case, it's using the custom car that I painted out in the single player mode, quick race style. So we can go into those options and let's take a look at what we've got available to us. One thing that I'll point out at this point is that what you're seeing on your screen on YouTube is not indicative, in my opinion, as to what you see in game. This is one of the areas that I'm actually quite impressed with NASCAR Heat 4. I really like the look of the vehicles here in the showroom area, with one exception, and that is some of the colors. And we're going to see that here in just a moment. So our base paint scheme, you can see it is a darker red. Then we go with a brighter green, but you notice that the color we see on the left-hand side of the screen next to stripe 1 does not match what we see on the car. And that, as best I can tell, is a lighting effect. So the lighting is essentially washing out the color a little bit more, and the car will look even different when you get it on the track. So keep in mind there's some lighting effects that are dulling the colors out some, washing them out a little bit, but there is a very nice and crisp look to the cars in this screen, from my opinion, that simply does not show once you capture the video and it gets compressed onto YouTube. It just does not go into the level of quality that you're going to see on your own screen. Now, one of the options that has been added this year is we are now unlimited as to the number we can choose, up through 99 anyway. And each of the numbers is going to have at least one, and in most cases 3, I believe, options for the type of font that you get with the number. So here you can see I'm using 13A font. We move over to B, and then finally C. Then after that, it moves back over to the number 14, and we start all over with A, go through B, and then C as well. So you've got 3 basic fonts that are available. We can choose the number feel for the color, and of course the rim style. All of this is the same as what we saw in Heat 3. So now let's move on to the next step. All right, now is the moment where it asks us if we're really sure that the Cup Series is the only series we want to run, because it gives us the option to go ahead and start the season in only the Cup Series, or we have an opportunity now to go back and actually add in another series if we've changed our mind. We're going to click on Start the Season, and our friend Warren is back to let us know that he'll get everything set up and let us know when it's all in place, which thankfully won't take very long because we got a race at Daytona coming up very soon. Now we need to choose our very first incentive contract. These will also change over the course of a season and career just based on how we're doing in the point standings. Right now, of course, we don't have any results to choose from, so we're going to get some very low, both low paying as well as low requirements from the race. You can see the very first one on easy is 2 top 35s in 3 races. And for that, we'll receive a payout of $31,200. Okay, then it lets us know that our incentive contracts will improve as our standings improve. So incentive to continue performing better. So in this case, we're going to choose the 2 top 35s. And then it is time to prepare for Daytona. So on the right-hand side of the screen, it lets us know that Daytona is the very next race. And based on the current career mode settings we're using, it's going to be a 26-lap race and the total purse of $1.6 million. Remember, we're in the Cup Series, so the payouts are the highest and the cost is also the highest. But instead of moving right on to Daytona, which we'll do a little bit later on when we get started in our career mode series, instead I want to show you guys the rest of what you see across the top of the screen. So we've got current event, which is your main menu screen in career mode. It shows us our position, the number of races, the team name, the incentive contract, and so on. So a lot of information, basic information available here. Then we go into the work plan. This is where we're going to get into making any upgrades and purchasing new cars, that type of thing. And of course, it's got some more information to tell us there. Then we move on to my team. This is where we're going to deal with our employees. And in this case, we really need to train Dylan with some of the money that we have remaining right now. We can also hire an additional position. You have 2 employees per car, and since we have our first car, we can hire another employee. So we just decide if we want to do maybe another aero specialist or a suspension specialist, whichever one we prefer to focus on. Okay, then once we purchase our second chassis, regardless of what type of chassis it is, we'll be able to hire an additional 2 employees. So you need to get at least 2 cars to really get the number of employees up and moving, and then preferably 3 or more as time goes on. Then we move on next to our season standings, where we have an opportunity to see where we stand right now in the points, as well as where we are in the season as far as the race schedule. Okay, now we have future plans. So this is similar to what we had in NASCAR Heat 3, where every so often our manager would come in and ask us if we had any preferences, any teams we wanted him to reach out to for the possibility of driving for them next season. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see any contract requirements as we scroll through the various options. There will be different contract requirements. So here, it starts with a green mark next to reputation is inconsequential. So a 3-star team, they don't care that we're just getting started or that we haven't done very good in the past, whichever the case may be. But then right below that, we need to place in 40th position or higher in the playoff standing. So that shouldn't be all that difficult. And essentially, it's giving you the opportunity to sign with any 3-star team next season if you should decide to go that route. But if we move down to Chip Ganassi Racing, it is a 5-star team. Okay, reputation also doesn't really matter. But we need to be in the top 10 in the playoff standings by end of the year in order to have this opportunity. Also, if you look at the bottom of the screen in the center, below the team name and the picture of their current drivers, you will notice our payout per race. So if we decided to go race for another team, in this case, Beard Motorsports, 3-star team, $46,000 per race. Chip Ganassi, 5-star team, $107,750. So very nice. There's also information at the bottom. We can choose a team bio, get a little bit more information about the team, whether we come into a fairly new team or a more historic team like your Penske's and Gibbs and so on. Okay, so we got several options here, and you can see as you scroll between the 3, 4, and 5-star teams, you will notice the different contract requirements. So now let's move on to the About Me tab. This is where we're going to see who our rivals are, who our friends are, and our reputation. So here we can see a reputation breakdown, and that'll show us in all 4 of the series. Of course, right now we don't have any reputation since we've not run any races yet. This is where how clean of a driver we are is really going to start to matter. In games past, when this was added, it was pretty easy to earn a lot of friends. Even if you made contact with somebody during the race, all you had to do on the Twitter feed afterwards is simply apologize for hitting them, and it would generally fix any issues you created during the race, as long as they weren't too severe and you haven't had too much contact with one person. So it shouldn't be overall too big of a deal. We'll see how that works out as time goes on here in Heat 4. So there you have it, the very beginnings of starting our career mode. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned as we will continue our support for NASCAR Heat 4.